The Old Gold Club, powered by Wolverhampton Building Supplies, with Mikey Burrows and Chris Iwelumo.
Hello there, welcome along to the Old Gold Club. I'm Mikey Burrows, alongside me as ever is Chris Iwelumo, and our guest this week spent 4 years at Molineux as a player, making over 100 appearances, scoring 1 goal before going on to coach the under-18s, working as first-team coach under 3 managers, including 2 games as caretaker boss before returning for a 3rd time to take charge of the under-23s. Welcome to the Old Gold Club, Rob Edwards.
Thank you for having me, Mikey.
I would normally when we see people, we're like, oh, is it strange to be back? You know, how do you feel returning to the football club? Barely been away, you're here all the time.
Yeah, can't get rid of me, can
Your entire
That
career.
bad smell will just keep coming back. Rob's here again. Won't go. No, I'm going nowhere.
It's good though, good to be back there, I guess.
Yeah, it's great, especially at this moment in time now when the club's doing so well. There's been some tough times, obviously, over the last few years and recent times as well, but this is certainly a period now to be enjoying, and it's great to be a part of it. A small little part, obviously, because you know what the first team staff, obviously since Fosun have come in, and what the first team staff and players have done has been incredible. And without them doing so well, it wouldn't allow us to have and get what we get as well within the academy. So we hope that they keep going. I'm sure they will. They're going to keep pushing for more and striving to be even better, and we've got to keep doing that as well. Keep trying to stay on their coattails.
Was there ever any doubt in your mind about coming back for that 3rd spell?
No, not at all. I want to learn and keep getting better, and trying to improve. And I really thought I'd have the opportunity to do that and learn from obviously someone who's had a massive impact in a short space of time in the manager and obviously his staff as well. And I feel I've learned a lot so far this season. It's great, you know, leading a team again as well with some very talented players. And like I said, just wanting to improve, but test myself and push myself as well and challenge myself, because, you know, good players always challenge you as well, and we're looking for ways to keep them going, keep them motivated. And we've got a good group. I've enjoyed it so far this season.
I think it's it's all about progression. You know, I think again, you look at you had the opportunity to come up with the first team under Kenny Jackett. Was that something that you wanted? Was it a no-brainer? You know, because you'd got in, you've went and done your coaching, and then that opportunity came. Was that something you were ready for then?
I don't know if you ever know if you're ready for something until it happens and you get in the job, Looms. I mean, it was something that happened quite quickly, and I wasn't looking for it at the time. I was really enjoying my role as the under-18s coach, working with some really good players, and Kenny spoke to me one day and said, "Look, Rob, I want you to come up with us and mainly do some work maybe around the defenders and just be an extra body around, another set of eyes, another set of hands to sort of help with certain things." And that then was a no-brainer. I wanted to help. You know, the manager asks you to do something, you just want to do it, help and learn. And I really enjoyed those probably 2 to 3 months towards the end of the season. And we had a real push for the playoffs. You remember that, that season. And was it just goal difference we missed out on, I think, in the end?
It was a big win on the final day against Millwall,
right.
But it wasn't quite enough.
That's right. Was it 4-2 we won, but we needed a few more goals or something like that?
Yeah, I think if we hadn't have conceded the 2 and scored 1 more, and it's that
there was a lot of ifs and buts, but it was quite, it was really exciting. It was a great learning curve for me, something I really enjoyed. I spoke to Ken at the end of that season, and he said, done well, being good around the place, and we'd like you to continue to do it. And obviously then it was a no-brainer for me to be in that first team environment. So I had 2.5 years in and around the first team here again, and loved every minute of it. We got to work with some really good people, learn from a lot of really good people as well, and see some maybe tough times as well, but all that makes you hopefully better in the long run.
How important was the relationship with Kenny then? Was that, because something he was very close. He's a great character, isn't he? But he's very intense as well. Yeah. He does his work quietly, but it's important that he sees everything that goes on. And he had a good relationship with you, didn't he? Yeah. Which
he sees and knows it all, and like I think all good managers do. unbelievably well prepared, really organised. Seeing Ken's work ethic was a real eye-opener for me as well. And I knew, like, and you come into coaching, you've got to work hard. You've got to be dedicated to what you want to do if you want to progress and you want to do well and you want to be regarded as a good coach. You've got to put the time in. You know, we'd have an away game. On the bus back, he's already watching the game. On the bus back, he's watched the game back. He's made his mental notes, you know, and he knows exactly then who's done well, who needs a little bit of work, and he's clear in his mind then for the next game. You know, he was always in first. He'd always be, you know, he'd be working so hard, and he'd just drive the most out of his staff. And I think everyone wanted to do well for him as well. But he had then a great assistant in Joe Gallen, who was in a way kind of the opposite. Now Joe had a great work ethic, but then he had this way about him that would just make me laugh all the time as well. And I think it was just a really good balance. And they did great for the club, didn't they? You know, they did great for the club. Without them doing so well as well, the club wouldn't be in the position they're in now, without them getting promoted out of League One that first time of asking, and then doing well in the Championship as well. So working under them for that, however long it was, 18 months or so, I'm really thankful for the opportunity, and I hold them both in such high regard.
It's gave you the taste for that as well. You know, we're talking about the young players getting that feel, getting the minutes. That's gave you the taste of that environment as well. And like you say, you've came back. You're with the 23s, and it's the players. It's important for them that they have the progression. But as a coach as well, it is management one day, isn't it?
I'd like to think so. I mean, what I think has helped me as well, because being in the 18s and the 23s and working in the academy, then it makes you value so much the importance of young players and wanting to get that progression through. And I know that, again, this is a football club that values that and young players, and it's got a tradition of producing very good young players and coming through to the first team. And I think if you've been if you come out of the game as a player and then go straight into that first team environment, maybe you don't appreciate what goes in underneath and lower down with the younger ones. You don't appreciate all the work and the time that goes in from the academy manager all the way throughout to the dots, the under 8s that are coming in now, and you see them, and the time that goes in, the hours that people that work to produce that. Look at Morgan now, the time that has gone into him.
Well, it's the thing is
huge,
because when you made that step up to the first team, Looms, you nearly came in to replace Rob at 18s, but you realised how difficult that job was.
Yeah, I think, like you say, I think real life kind of gets in the way. I felt that I wish I'd spoke with Rob probably 3-4 months before, came in and shadowed, so you knew what the expectations and, like you say, the responsibilities really were. It's something that I learned very quickly, that am I able, and Rob said it there, can you commit 100% with everything that was going on? I just had my young daughter. I just bought my first property with my business partner. I was 1 year into a 2-year intense degree. So there was all little things, and you can't spin that many plates and give it your all and be a success. So it was one of the hardest decisions that I had to make. And in hindsight, it was the right decision, with everything that's came. But yeah, it was it's just funny, that exact time,
I know. You're right. I mean, the lads need you, but then your family needs you, and everyone else needs, and there's always things that are pulling on you. But you're right. You've got to be able to commit to it 100%. And I think people talk about that a lot in football, don't they? That I suppose if you're not sure, then it's probably then the right thing not to do right now. It was always something that I was driven to do, and I knew that's what, for me, I think it was all I really knew as well. And so that was never really a question. But yeah, the commitment, people perhaps don't really realise then what it entails. Then I'm not talking about people that, they'll know people work hard, managers, coaches and stuff, but sometimes when you can hear it from the terraces and you hear you sometimes get frustrated because they're putting everything into it and they're not sleeping at night, and then they're waking up, and if they do sleep, and they're waking up after an hour or two and they're straight on thinking about it again, and it does take over.
Can we talk about then your 2 games in caretaker charge? Because I think people sometimes forget that you had come into the club as under 18s, you're less than a season, and you're up working with the first team, and then a year later, so realistically 14, 15 months as working as a first team coach, all of a sudden someone comes and says, Rob, you're taking the team. And I remember talking to you around that time, and because we spoke to Terry Connor when he was in doing the podcast, and he kind of had a similar experience to you, I imagine, whereby you suddenly have to do media. And because we talked a lot about it, I remember we were all sat down talking through when you had to go in and do that first press conference after the fact that the manager had been sacked, and suddenly it's all on you and everything else that comes with it. So how did you cope at that time?
You just do. You just get on with it, and I loved it. I'd say the hardest bit and the stuff that really played on my mind and took up a lot of my time, because I was clear. I knew how I wanted us to play. I knew what I wanted to do in terms of the stuff on the grass. The stuff that I found hardest was that knowing I was probably going to go back to being first team coach or whatever, having to leave people out, people that I knew well and worked with, and had a good relationship with. We had a big squad around that time. So obviously when Walter came in, there was a big influx of players really quickly, wasn't there? So I remember leaving out probably, away trip to Blackburn, leaving 4, 5, 6 players out of the squad completely, not even travelling. But knowing then I'm probably in a week or two's time, I'm going to be working with them again and having to try and have that relationship with them as well. So, but I suppose I'll go back to Mick and good managers, not just Mick, but he stands out for me in terms of someone who was always honest and would always speak to the players if he wasn't going to play them, and that's always stayed with me as well. So I'm not afraid to have those difficult conversations, and I felt a lot better once I had spoken to the players, but knowing that those conversations were looming and I had to get them done to then be able to really now I can focus and concentrate. And the hardest bit, and what took up a lot of my time in my mind was, right, I've got to speak to him, him. And it was literally that many to leave out, or you're not going to start now. And then, because obviously there was a second game as well, there was the Derby game, and then there was more decisions. Now it's at home. We'd done well against Blackburn. We hadn't got the win, but it was a good 1-1 draw, decent performance. Now we're at home, though. The onus is going to be on us, and so I made a few changes again to try and be a little bit more positive, a little bit more attack-minded. And then there's another experience. We're 2-0 down at half-time. We're getting booed and having to deal with that. So then get a reaction from the players. I made a sub in the first half. The game was live on Sky, so Jair Teixeira is not my friend anymore really now. But there's decisions to make, and you live and die by them as a manager. But it was good experience to have that for a few weeks. I suppose, like I said, the hardest bit was knowing I'm going to go back to that. So you got to be able to keep that relationship there with the players as well. It was a fine balancing act.
Was there confrontation when? I don't think anyone likes to be dropped.
There was a difficult one where Silvio, left back, had come in, and great lad, really good professional, but I wasn't starting him, and I think he just, there was a lot of frustration then. So I remember having a difficult conversation with him. He was fine, really, really professional, but he was emotional. He was just desperate to play, and that's the hardest part as a manager. I think if you speak to any manager, they always say those are the most difficult moments. You want to be able to play everyone, but you can't. You have to pick 11. And that was tough with him. And there was other ones with people like Steers, who done unbelievable for this football club, and I know him and played with him and all that. So that was tough. But then, thankfully, when Paul Lambert came in as well, Steers played his games and had an impact still. Scoring a goal at Anfield and stuff. So it was fine. But there was tough conversations.
Would you see that the players, because you were honest, and I love how you use Mick, because he said it exactly how it was. I've had that argument with him, and he justifies his decision. Mm-hmm. So when you went back to the coach, would you say that respect was obviously that relationship, that bond, because you do have a responsibility. You're the in-between man between the manager and the player. They can come to you, but being honest, that's still the same. You're not affected.
I think that was still intact, which was right, and I'm glad I did it that way, and I would never change.
Yeah.
I think the players might not agree with it, but they respect that decision, and they respect the fact that you've given them the time to speak to them, and I think that's the most important thing. They understand then.
They understand your position as well,
don't
they?
You've got to make a decision, and you live and die by those. We didn't win the game, so then they could, the ones that didn't play could say, well, we maybe you got it wrong, Rob, maybe I did, and we gave it a good go in that second half against Derby, but you can look at it. Back. Yeah, you can look at it and go, get some decisions wrong, but you have to stand by them.
Because it's that difficult thing, isn't it, as well, that the team wasn't doing very well. That's why Walter had left, and so because you kind of gave other people who hadn't featured as much an opportunity, like Cameron Borthwick Jackson and people like that, and all right, it didn't work out for him and his Wolves career in the end, but it's almost like, is that not your job to do as the caretaker guy, to come in and go, well, look, it clearly wasn't working with who was playing before, so we need to try something different. We can't just do what the manager was doing, otherwise manager would still be there.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you want to, like I said, I was clear on how I wanted to try and play, and it's difficult within a couple of training sessions to be able to really make a difference. But there was elements of it that we were really pleased with in that Blackburn game, because we were asking some different things. You know, the reason Cameron played is because he's very good on the ball, and we felt he could play a bit more inside to narrow up the opposition, to then give 1v1 for Helder Costa and even Cavallero, you know, the two wide players that we were playing in those positions at the time. So there was reasons behind it for why certain people played, and obviously Doc can do that. We know how good Doc is on the ball as well, so that's why we went with those two. But yeah, you go with those decisions, and the players either perform or they don't, and they gave it everything, every single one of them. I thanked them after especially the Derby game, and said, look, thank you very much. You've all been terrific. The manager upstairs watching now, or watching back at home on the TV now, will know he's got something there to work with. You know, I couldn't question any of their commitment, any of their professionalism, not one of them, and that was important. But they are professional footballers, and you expect that. And there was no issues from that point of view. Just disappointed that we didn't get the win that we were looking for, the wins that we were looking for. But you're right, we were in a bit of a sticky patch at the time, and that's obviously why Walter moved on. So then you're picking up a team that's maybe slightly low on confidence, and like I said, there was two good performances, or 1.5, I would say, good performances. The Blackburn game was good, and the second half against Derby. So it was an enjoyable time and an experience that I'm extremely proud of. To be 33 years old, not long out of the game, but then to manage, albeit for 2 games, but the club that you've been so proud to play for in the Championship for a couple of games was probably my most. When I think about it now and you say it like that, it's probably my proudest moment in my career so far. Yeah. So it was incredible to be standing there on a touchline. A really proud moment that the club trusted me to do that for those 2 games as well was something that I will never forget.
Like you're a strong character. You've got strong beliefs in football. You're a presence. Straight away, and we had this chat with TC that when you are, I guess, have that relationship with the manager, you do kind of have to have the same beliefs, but you're very saying that I knew exactly how I wanted to play. Kenny Jackett, Walter Zenga, Paul Lambert, all very different styles. Surely then, isn't that frustrating for you that you can't really... I know you've got a voice, you've got an opinion, they'll take it on board, but you basically have to go with what the manager wants and says, even though that you have your beliefs, how you want to play your football. I know it's not your team, but still, your input, you want it to be taken on board,
Yeah, the way it works is... you're dead right. You obviously have your own beliefs, like anyone does, individual. So the way we're working this year, Sean, my assistant, will have exactly the same. He'll be thinking, but the job of the assistant and first team coach then is to support that manager with everything, especially once it's gone outside the room. So you can have your discussions in the office, get your point across. And all 3 of those managers that you mentioned all wanted your input. They all wanted to hear your opinion and valued that as well. Kenny was unbelievable. He'd write everything down as well. So he could come back 4 months later or something and go, we thought that, and he's... So did
he have just notebooks?
Ken would always write things down and just make notes all the time on what people would think.
You told me a story when a couple came in.
You've got to be ready. You've got to be ready. Yeah, your best players, or what's your team? And bang, be ready. Joe Gallen always said, Rob, be ready for the under-18s. Be ready with your team. Always know your team, because you never know at night. Because we'd always have a 9 o'clock meeting. Kenny would obviously lead it with all the first team staff, and then myself and Scott, 21s as it was at the time, and myself with the 18s would go in and listen in case they need any players, and then Scott would take some players from us, and that's how it works. And every now and again Ken would go, what's your team? So you'd always be ready, he'd be on your toes, the manager's asking, and so you want to know, he'd want to know, so you've got to be ready and on the ball. Sometimes it's who's the best player in the league. He'd go around the whole table and he'd just write that down as well, and just sort of knowing people's opinions. And
like a test of what you said 3 months ago.
Yeah. It just keeps you on the ball and on your toes, and he just always want to know people's opinions and stuff. So all 3 of the managers wanted to know. And I think by the time it got to Paul Lambert, I'd probably had a little bit more experience, been around it for a few years and knew the league a bit better and knew the players, and was able to then perhaps have a little bit more of a say, and because the gaffer and Stu would come in, I knew the players well by that time, and knew what they were capable of and what they weren't. So it was kind of, by then I was probably asked a little bit more, and maybe that opinion was valued even more by then because of that little bit more experience over a few years. I think, you know, in the early days under Ken, it would be I was just there learning and listening, and Ken would always still ask, but he knew the answers. You know, Ken and Joe, they knew. Obviously, when Walter came, he needed me as much as possible because I knew the lads and knew the players. So that was an interesting period, an interesting time, and you never want to see a manager go because again, it would take over Walter's life. You know, he was over here from another country, away from his family, and all he'd be thinking about is football, Wolves. And he was always looking at the videos and always looking at the opposition and always had a plan. And he always want to support the manager and he don't want it to not work out. Yeah. And so it was sad how it ended so quickly. Paul came in and I suppose steadied things. And again, learned a lot from him and his experiences that he's had over the over a number of years now and been very successful as a manager. And actually had worked under him at Norwich as well when we got promoted from the Championship to the Premier League. So I knew him a little bit already, which was good, and that helped. So yeah, I mean, great experiences under those managers, and stands you in good stead going forward.
There's interesting kind of symmetry to the fact that where as a coach you worked under 3 managers, as a player here you played under 3 managers because it was Dave Jones who first brought you in, and then very quickly it becomes Glenn Hoddle, and then it becomes Mick as well. So that's from when we had Shea Oliviniana in here, he talked about the fact that
same time.
3 very different managers that you played under.
Yeah, there were. I mean, Dave was obviously he brought me to the club, but unfortunately, within about 5 games, I had to have ankle reconstruction. So I never played then under Dave again. He left and Glenn came in. So then I played the majority of my football under Glenn and under Mick. But yeah, all 3 were different types. Glenn, I thought tactically was very, very good. He'd shift things around and change things. Always had for me, it just seemed really clear. I liked it. We'd sometimes play 3 at the back, sometimes 4. And I know there was frustration with the supporters a lot on how we had a good group of players. And maybe we did underachieve because I think we finished 7th in the league the year that we should really. Reading won it. Remember when Reading were like, won it 100 odd points, then 106 points or something. I think we finished 7th and we should have been better. We played a lot of good football, had some good players, but underachieved, drew a lot of games, Looms, and that was a bit of a regret because after that then there was a bit of a mass exodus. A lot of players moved on. Nails went up to Celtic, Joel left to Everton, Kenny go to Celtic then as well, Kenny Miller.
We went back. Celtic or Rangers, I'm looking at the lads.
There's a lot.
One of them, he was there a lot.
It might have been Rangers, then Celtic, or wherever it was. I can't keep up with him. He's all over the place. He's still going now as well. Anyway, there was a lot of change. And then Mick came in as well. And then with a younger group, just before obviously you came in, Looms, with a younger group of players, just instilled this belief, this work ethic and this togetherness. And, he does, but with that honesty. And had a real effect then with a group that probably weren't so fancied as the year before, and got us into the playoffs that year. So it was a great to see all the different managers work.
How difficult was it for you at that time though, as your Wolves career kind of came towards an end? Because Kevin Foley had come in kind of your final season, and I guess did you ever feel that you never really were able to nail down whether you were the right back or the centre back? That ability to kind of play both.
Maybe, Mikey. I mean, I look at it now and I think Mick was right doing what he did. He brought, obviously, so Darren Ward had come in after Mick's first year. I played quite a lot and then got injured towards the end of the year. And we'd had a good run, myself and Neil Collins had a good run. I think we'd won sort of 6 or 7 games with us playing centre-back. Breeny came back in. I think we beat West Brom at home 1-0. And anyway, pushed to the playoffs. But I got injured and done my medial and I was out for quite a while. The last few games of the season and right the way through the summer. And then the following pre-season, it was still not quite right. Wardy had come in and obviously then Kev that following season as well, and it was just competition for places, and in the end, look, Mick did the right thing. Wolves got promoted, but I don't regret a thing because I went up to Blackpool and had a couple of 3 great years there. We got promoted there as well, so I don't regret it. It was it was a really good time for me up there as well, but it was the right thing for me to do to go and move on and play regularly. I wanted to really have a go at centre back. That's where I felt I could be at my best. Mick knew that. Couldn't guarantee me the game time there. Obviously, Kev had come in and Kev was like Mr. Consistent for years and years and years, wasn't he? 7, 8 out of 10 every single game. He was terrific for the club. So no complaints from me. I think it was the right decision that Mick made.
What would you say to a player? Because I'm looking at a player and they can play in a few different positions, and that can be a negative as well. some players should just nail it down. I'm a centre back. I'm not going to play full back. And is that a regret maybe that you were, because as a player you think, you know, if the manager says go, you're playing in goals. I'm playing up front. Yeah, I'm playing. But it can be a negative.
You know what? I think I had that conversation with Mick, and this is where I see myself. And you know what? Then he listened, but then it kind of, because then Neil Collins played a few games at right back, where maybe I would have played then, and maybe that took a few games off me as well.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking at the time, okay, well, this is why I want to have a right go here and compete with Brainy, Wardy, etc. at centre back. And it, you know, that didn't happen. It's interesting you saying that. I was having a conversation with one of our players today, one of my lads that we've just brought in, Ed Francis, in the 23s. And Ed's a talented footballer, but can play a number of different positions. And it's just important that we get that right as well.
Yeah.
My best mate and my best man at me wedding, John Burrows, who was like England captain all the way up to under 20s. He was at Villa. He was like the golden boy. He was our first year. He made his debut at 17, and he was on the bench sort of 12 times in the first team squad at Villa. You know, at that age. But he was, because he was the best player, he was always played in different positions, and then never nailed down really one of them. And it just didn't happen for him. Yeah. And then he just faded away. So I've seen it happen firsthand. And you're right. I think it is important to be an expert in that one position, but I suppose then if I look at someone like the manager now, he'll trust one or two, not everyone, but there's a few people who can do a few different positions as well. And that, I suppose, is the beauty of that smaller squad. But he knows there's those three who can go there and there, and that helps me. Yeah. Maybe I would have been that sort of, you know, in that setup then, one of those people. But, you know, I get what you're saying, definitely, to be an expert in that one position.
Right, we're going to continue this chat on our podcast extra, which will be available to download from all the usual places after you've finished watching this on Facebook, YouTube and Twitter as well. We're going to finish off this portion, though, with what we refer to as the rundown. Mr. Iwelumo, fire away.
Yeah. Best player that you played with at Wolves?
At Wolves? Yeah, Jolien. I think, because I played alongside Joel and he was just the top centre half, and obviously went on to have a fantastic career as well elsewhere. So Joel.
Who was the worst trainer at the club? And you can include someone from when you were coaching as well if you want.
I think, who was the worst? Leon Clark was quite sloppy at the time.
You can put me in the mix.
No,
as well.
I would never do that, Looms. You're doing your boxing training at the moment. I would not dream of saying you. Leon was a little bit sloppy, but Leon's, I think, matured as a person and grown and done really, really well as well since he's got, and then obviously came back and did well for the club as well. But probably Leon at the time.
Biggest moaner?
Mark Kennedy.
Really?
Or Incy or Mark Kennedy, Colin Cameron, any of those three around that time. Like when I first came into the squad, I'm thinking, what is going on here? Got Paul Ince, got Mark Kennedy, got Colin Cameron. They're all, what are you doing, Rob? And I had to grow up then. You know, 20, 21 years old, whatever I was, and I got people like that, sort of, but they just got high standards, demand of you. Yeah.
Who was your best friend at Wolves?
Matt Murray would have been, yeah. There's a few. To be fair, the club is great for that. I think there's a lot of good relationships that people come out from this club at, whether that's staff or, you know, players, and the club's got something special there with that.
Yeah, definitely. Best and worst dress sense?
You put yourself up there for best.
Mickey Gray was smooth, wasn't he? Mickey was pretty smooth, and then I wouldn't put myself.
Oh, you got to be putting yourself up there.
No, George and Dar was very smooth. George always looked $1 million. Close between George and Mickey. Worst. Stephen Elliott used to come in with slough sleeves. Was a bit. Remember, just a trackie in that one. He just like basic. Just woke up and put a pair of baggy trackie bottoms on.
Who was the funniest player that you played with? Again, Matt Murray would probably want to be put up there.
Matt was up there, but people like to take the mick out of him, don't they, and laugh at his expense, and he likes that, you know, because he's always the butt of the joke as well. And he likes that, doesn't he? He loves being in the middle of it all. So he's always involved in a laugh, but sometimes it's at him, you know. But he likes that. He wants it to be that way. Who was funny?
Because who else would have been in amongst that group?
Neil was always quite funny for
Neil
me because
Collins.
Neil, he was. I mean, he just so loud. He's just so loud, unbearably loud. Neil, shut up! But it was funny, just that constant drone, wasn't it? And he's spitting everywhere when he's talking and laughing and he loses. You know what I mean? And but yeah, Neely, he does make me laugh still now when I speak to him. So yeah.
Best manager you worked for?
It's really tough. It's really tough because I was really lucky to work under a lot of top managers. I mean, Graham Taylor gave me my debut at Villa, and then people like, I don't want to leave anyone out. There's a lot of international managers that I work for, especially at this club as well. Glenn and Mick, Ian Holloway. Ian Holloway, kind of for his brilliance, is genius really for what he achieved at Blackpool, but it was crazy. But what he did with us as a group of players for that season, for all those couple of years that those few years that he was there, was incredible. Yeah. So I'd have to say him.
We're just going to finish off. You kind of half mentioned it before, but your proudest moment at Wolves. I mean, we talk about more than 100 games that you played, all the different roles that you've had at the football club, being in charge for those 2 matches. Yeah,
it has to be. I think, in particular, the home game at Derby when you're leading them out at home, it was a little bit surreal, because I suppose you dream of things like that happening, but you never really believe it's going to go into. So I think that was an incredible moment, incredible, really really proud and privileged to have done that.
Okay. We're going to finish off this rundown, and there will be lots more chat with Rob Edwards as well, available on our podcast extra, available to download from all the usual places. Thank you very much for watching. As ever, if you want to get in contact with us, we are oldgoldclub@wolves.co.uk, at Wolves across social media. Thank you for watching.
The Old Gold Club, powered by Wolverhampton Building Supplies, with Mikey Burrows and Chris Iwelumo.